Thank you all, and welcome to the NSGIC EDH for 3D NHD monthly forum. We appreciate you being here. This is the third of our monthly forums, and a few technical difficulties last time, but think we're getting it a little better each time. Just as a reminder, you all know about the project. I want to let you know that the webinar is being recorded. If you have questions at any time during the presentations, please feel free to put them in the chat box, and we'll get to Phil's going to monitor those questions. And again, just a reminder that this is a USGS cooperative agreement project, and the objective is to engage state, local governments, and their private sector partners in the derivation of high-res hydrography from 3D LiDAR, IFSAR, and Alaska. I wanted to start off with a quick project update. Our task over here to the right, as you can see, and so on each of these, this is, as I stated, this is the third of our monthly forums, and we're going to continue those for the foreseeable future, likely into August. And if interest persists, we'll keep going after that. All of the previous forums, if you go to the NSGIC Learning link, you can either go to Program Materials and drop down to EDH, or you can simply do a search on the materials using EDH. And you'll see for each webinar, we have the recording, we have the slides, and a Q&A doc, as well as, I think, the participant and the chat information. So all those resources are available there. If you're interested in presenting at the forum, or if you have a topic that you would like to have addressed, please let us know. And we're happy to consider that or reach out or work with you. The next task we have are to establish the NSGIC EDH communities, and we have 2 communities established at mynsgic.org. I encourage you to join one or both. The interest group is a general interest group where you'll get project information, announcements about forums and other activities, project updates. The working group are for folks that would actually like to engage in project tasks. That doesn't mean you have to engage in every project task. But you'll be given a little bit more information about activities that are upcoming. We definitely will be utilizing this group to sort of figure out what are those critical factors surrounding elevation-derived hydrography. And just so, if you do sign up for the working group, please do also sign up for the interest group, because we will not be repeating general information in both groups. So, thanks.
Hey, Linda.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask everyone, just for attendance purposes, just to put their name in the chat? It's an easy way to capture that.
Okay, and your organization, please.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll add that to the notes. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
All right, continuing with our project update, you'll see the third task is the inventory state and regional elevation-derived experiences, and Phil has done a fantastic job. The 3D NHD experience inventory is now available. Let me see if I can drop that in the chat. Actually, Phil, can you do that when you get a chance? Or maybe I'll do it.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah,
That's fine.
I said sure, I'll do it.
Okay. I've got it here.
Okay, all right.
Let me just take a moment to do that. You might have to scroll through and find that with all the other incoming information. But it's also in the slides. Excuse me, jumping ahead here. In that inventory, we are asking folks, and this could be formal, it can be informal, it could be extensive, it could be minor, just to kind of give us information about any EDH experiences that you've had. Just trying to get a handle on what states are doing, what questions they have. The first year of the project is really focused on an information exchange between state, regional, and private sector partners with the USGS. And so this is our first step, sort of trying to get a better feel for the landscape on state and regional EDH activities. If you do go to the inventory, I do ask, will you touch base with your state representative first? And you can get those at the NSGIC website. We don't want multiple people entering multiple information for the same project or related projects. So hopefully by working through your state representative, who may or may not be aware of this activity, so you might want to kind of give them the big picture when you reach out. But if you could just let your state representative know that you're going to provide this information, they can sort of make sure that we're not getting duplicate records there.
Yeah, let me add, Linda, that to emphasize, this does not have to be a full-blown EDH kind of project. For example, we've already got one submittal, which is a state looking to develop a culvert layer so that they can hydro-enforce their hydrography. And you know, that's, I think, a great example of one of the pieces of the puzzle.
Yes, thank you for emphasizing that. Yes, again, as formal, informal, big or large, we just want to hear about your interest in your activities. And in addition, we are working on developing EDH for 3D and HD information hub. And from there, you should be able to access training materials, you can access federal resources, you can access project materials, and we're getting that put together right now. We hope maybe be able to announce that next month. So I'll just quickly just kind of throw out there, does anybody have any questions about the project and the task before we get on to our presenters? If you do, feel free to throw those in the chat and we will address them later on. So I am glad to present my friend Sylvia Terziati, and I'm sure will be a friend, Christiane Archuleta. Sylvia and Christiane are the authors of the USGS Elevation-Derived Hydrography Specification. Sylvia is a USGS GIS specialist for the Southern Atlantic Water Science Center. She's also an associate national map liaison for both North and South Carolina. And Christiane is a GIS nationalist with the NG-TOC Center in Rolla, which of course is part of the National Geospatial Program. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to Christiane, I believe.
Yes, thank you very much, Linda. All right, let me figure out how to share.
Permissions.
I don't see anything that says share my screen yet, so I'm not sure that I have permission. Ah, there it is. Okay, I'm going to share this screen too and start my presentation, and hopefully you'll see it when I start it.
It's coming up.
There we go. Do you see the presentation now?
We do, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, as Linda mentioned, I'm Christiane Archuleta, and I'm presenting today with Sylvia Terziati, and we want to share some information about the elevation-derived hydrography specifications and their applications for elevation and hydrography geospatial projects. But before we go into this effort to include hydrography derived from elevation data into the USGS hydrography data holdings, we thought we should explain why we're doing this. If there's anyone listening who has used USGS hydrography data in the past and with modern elevation data, you may have noticed that sometimes it doesn't match up quite right with the elevation surface, but this wasn't always the case. From the late 1800s through the mid-1970s, the USGS collected elevation and hydrography data together, so it was a near perfect fit. In the late 1960s, the USGS began using digital elevation or digital methods to collect data in the field. And it was at this point that the hydrography started to kind of drift apart from the elevation data spatially. Because of different digital collection techniques and different programs collecting the data, the two data sets no longer perfectly aligned. And this brings us to today, where by using high-resolution elevation data, such as LiDAR and IFSAR, we can derive the information needed to effectively create matching hydrography and elevation data sets once again. This integration between hydrography and elevation data is part of a larger vision for a 3D national topography model, which is the implementation of the 3D nation vision to create a continuous integrated 3D elevation and hydrography surface from the peaks of our mountains to the depths of our waters. And this would improve and enable critical applications such as flood forecasting in 3D at the street level, hydrologic observing systems and models that account for water from the atmosphere to the oceans, and also 3D geologic models. And there are three main products that elevation-derived hydrography can be used for. They can be used as break lines for height to hydroflatten digital elevation models, processing for pre-completion of features to the National Hydrography Dataset, and hydro enforcement of digital elevation models. In order to help meet the vision of the USGS for well-integrated elevation and hydrography data, we've recently published 2 new specification documents. These new specifications connect the dots between existing LiDAR and NHD data. The new documents are the Elevation-Derived Hydrography Acquisition Specifications and the Elevation-Derived Hydrography Representation, Extraction, Attribution, and Delineation Rules. We call those the READ rules for short. So now I'd like to introduce you to the acquisition specifications. This table shows what is covered by the EDH acquisition specifications. The specs do not tell a user how to create the hydrographic features, but it describes what requirements need to be satisfied in order for the finished hydrography data to be submitted to the USGS as an elevation-derived hydrography deliverable. The specifications help the USGS acquire data that has consistent attribution that is compatible with the NHD, meets a minimum required collection criteria, and meets horizontal and vertical positional requirements. In the table on the right, you can see the types of features recommended for collection in the EDH specs. This list of features includes those that can be derived from elevation data and correspond to NHD F codes or LiDAR-based specifications. NHD features not found on this list are difficult to derive from elevation data, and that's why they're not included. The elevation-derived coding system allows for the collection of various types of hydrography data that can be used for different purposes. For instance, using EDH F-class, E-class, and F codes, you could have features for conflation into the NHD, you could have your own project features for use outside of the USGS, and you could store break lines for hydroflattening or hydroenforcing your DEMs in this same data structure. Most of the EDH F codes match the NHD F codes and are defined in the same way as in the NHD, which facilitates conflation of EDH into the NHD. The coding system allows for the collection of features outside of these specifications as well. Users can add their own codes that could be tracked outside of the NHD or additional NHD codes that weren't included in the EDH specifications. The coding system provides for the ability to use the features as elevation break lines, which meet LiDAR-based specification break line requirements for hydroflattening. The features listed in the lower middle table are those needed for hydroflattening a DEM surface to meet the LiDAR-based specification. There are also codes that can be used for hydroenforcement. For instance, you could use these codes to find culverts to hydroenforce a DEM. So if a LiDAR project collects EDH data, this data can be used both as break lines for elevation purposes, such as hydroflattening, and for conflation into the NHD, and for other purposes that meet user needs outside of the USGS. For elevation-derived hydrography, there is a minimum set of features required for collection. Although, as stated before, people can collect additional features outside this baseline collection set. The minimum set of features is comparable to the density of what is currently in the NHD database. Although we use the NHD as a baseline set of features, the feature alignment must match the bare earth 3-depth DEM horizontally and vertically, and a Z-value is required on every vertex. Features no longer present in the LiDAR surface must be removed, and features that meet READ rules that were not present in the NHD data will be added. To try to avoid overmapping, additional features above the minimum set of features must also meet these requirements. A feature must be visible on the DEM, or if not visible on the DEM, it should be present in an accepted ancillary data source. A feature can be collected if it's necessary to connect a hydrologic network. In this example, the yellow features are additional features added to the geometrically corrected NHD features that you can see in red. We recognize that additional line work may be added that may not be verifiable using LiDAR. The drainage rate code has been included to allow for features that may need verification later. For our alignment requirements, all features must align with the DEM and with the current NHD where appropriate. Although we do not want correctly placed EDH geometry moved to snap to incorrectly placed older NHD features. All features must have a downstream orientation. They must match between project areas and be logically and spatially consistent with the elevation data, both horizontally and vertically. Next, I'll describe the companion document to the specifications, the READ rules. The READ rules describe in detail all of the features that are to be collected and the parameters for collection. The document is designed so each feature type can be separated as a whole from the rest of the document and used by a technician who's working on a specific feature type. So if you have someone who is working on stream rivers, for instance, they can take that section from the document and have all of the information they need for collection. Online resources are also being developed to support the specs and READ rules as well. We have a website where you can access the specifications documents and also find additional resources, such as examples of errors that can be encountered while producing EDH data. Here's an example of one of the error explanations we provide on the website. This one's for determining the correct length of a connector feature through a dam between a water body and a stream. And there are many other useful examples to be found on the website as well. Now I'll pass the presentation over to Sylvia Terziati so she can provide information about implementation research and applications for EDH data.
Thanks, Christiane. Go ahead and go to the next one. Thanks. Now that USGS's specifications for the acquisition of EDH data, we've begun some pilot projects to explore the collection of hydrography data from elevation data, storing it in the EDH format and converting it to NHD data. And this requires a robust inspection process, complete with tools to ensure the best possible data is available for NHD and for use as break lines for elevation derivatives. Our current pilots are in Texas and Alaska, and our research is currently developing the EDH inspection process and inspection tools for automation. And as part of our implementation research, we're trying to not only provide assessment data to inform our inspection process, but we are also trying to provide meaningful feedback to the contractors so that they can improve their collection process as well. And so far, it's been a very successful back and forth, I think. The elevation-derived hydrography inspection process looks at 3 basic categories of errors: completeness, integrity, and placement. In other words, we check that all of the features that should be there are there. We check that the correct codes are used for the correct types of hydrography, and that features are placed in the correct location, both horizontally and vertically. Ooh, there we go. For the completeness category, we have several things that we consider. We see if all of the previously collected NHD features have been captured, and if so, if they meet our current specifications and requirements. Have all the additional features not present in NHD met the specifications and requirements been added? And have we increased the density of the features appropriately for the resolution of the source data? And in this example on the left are the original NHD lines adjusted to match the elevation surface. And the figure on the right shows the increased density of features. Features that meet the specifications that were not included would have been omission errors. For the data integrity category, we check to make sure that the features are being collected according to coding specifications. In some cases, such as culverts, there are very specific rules describing how the code should be applied based on characteristics of the feature, and our integrity tests check to make sure that the rules were followed appropriately. Our final category for evaluation is horizontal and vertical placement. For horizontal placement, we look at the integration of the drainage network with the elevation surface by examining the geometry. In this example, you can see a number of places where the drainage lines were not placed properly in their channels. This is sometimes easily seen with visual inspection, but we rely on tools to generate flags to guide us to where those problems might be. We also look at the vertical alignment between hydrography and the DEM. In the left of the image, you can see several blue streamlines, two of which are intersected by a yellow cross-section line. In the graph below and to the right, you can see two blue points, which represent the intersection of the streams in the cross-section, both of which are within 1 meter below the surface of the DEM. So those are well integrated. For vertical placement, we also consider how the drainage network flows across the terrain. Z values should be monotonic. In other words, each Z value should be lower or equal to the preceding value in the downhill direction. And in this example, above the graph, you can see the stream highlighted in yellow. This stream is monotonic, and you can see the profile in the graph flowing in a downstream direction. Each dot on the graph represents a vertex on the stream, and each one is at or below the previous one. Our tools are currently being developed using Alaska IFSAR EDH pilot project data and the Southeast Texas pilot project area. The tools we have currently developed include tools to look at feature density, horizontal and vertical placement, and topology issues. Because we require the lines delivered to match the elevation surface, we compare the delivered line work directly to surface derivatives. Geomorphic derivatives are developed to define probable channel placement. The derivatives are combined into an index that is used to compare to the delivered lines. In this example, we create layers of curvature to find concave areas, line of sight openness to find steep banks in the terrain, geomorphon valleys and depressions, and areas that have relatively big changes in elevation compared to neighboring cells, referred to as bot hat, developed in New Hampshire to delineate probable channel locations. The derivatives are combined into an index that is used to compare to the delivered lines. The signatures that are picked up by each derivative is present in the combined geomorphic index, and the geomorphic index contains the combined count of input layers that define a feature from 1 to 4. Then we can use the GMI for horizontal placement evaluation. We compare the delivered lines to see if they fall within the GMI areas and to see if there are areas where features may exist but are not captured by the line work that was delivered. In areas where there's high relief or more dendritic drainage patterns, other derivatives are used in the index. In Alaska, for instance, high relief areas, we use the D-infinity flow model to find likely flow paths, and is combined with the planned curvature, geomorphon valleys, and bot hat channels. In this example, we see areas in pink where the lines fall outside of a channel, and areas circled in red where the index value is 3 or 4, indicating a likely channel and potential area of commission. We'd like to show you some examples of the enhancements to the data products from our pilot projects and also touch on some applications for the data. Increases in stream density and much better alignment with the elevation surface are present in the elevation-derived hydrography when compared to the NHD. In these examples, the pink lines are the original NHD and the blue lines are the EDH features. So you can see quite a few more stream features have been collected. And because of the diagnostics used and careful inspection, we're able to pinpoint areas with issues and flag them so that contractors can resubmit their work so it better integrates with the DTM surface. These two images are examples of updates to a delivery area between the first and second submission, where the red are the first submission and the blue are the second submission. Improvements in density, horizontal placement, and vertical placement are seen. And the yellow areas in the background are the areas that we identified as probable channels using the GMI tools. Excuse me. Updates are also being made to the watershed boundary data set to the HUC-12 level. The EDH is used to define pour points and the DTM is used to refine the ridges. In these examples, the red line is the existing WBD and the black line is the updated WBD. And as mentioned before, a primary goal of the specifications is the integration of the elevation and hydrography data, and coding and defining special cases and features are specifically defined in the specifications to meet this goal. In this example, the E class of 1 is used to identify any water body that should be used for hydroflattening if it's collected with the LiDAR concurrently, or it can be imported from the LiDAR source if the EDH is being created from an existing LiDAR data set. And most EDH features characterize water in a well-defined drainage network, but in less defined areas, there may be barriers to flow or difficult to detect channel areas in the DEM surface. And indefinite surface and subsurface flow features can be used to traverse these areas. The most common type of indefinite subsurface connection is a culvert. The specification document has detailed instructions and figures to help users identify those culverts and place them correctly within the EDH network so that they're spatially integrated with the elevation surface. And another type of indefinite subsurface connection is the underground conduit, which should be used for natural underground drainage paths or to breach other types of features that naturally block the flow, such as landslides, moraines, glacial till, or other naturally occurring berms. The underground conduit is used where subsurface flow is the connection between upstream and downstream surface network features, which is common in karst terrain. And that is all of our slides, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sylvia and Christiane. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to leave your slides up, so in case somebody wants to click back to a slide. Phil, you want to take over the questions?
Sure. I only see one in the chat so far, so I encourage everyone to add your questions, or we can even go, you can ask them out loud later. But first question, updates to the WBD are not currently required in the EDH specification, but it seems to be important if you're doing NHD updates. Will that be required in the future, or should that be required?
I could take a stab at that and then maybe turn it over to Steve and Becky. I believe they're on to answer. We are collecting it as part of our pilot project. And we kind of have a note in the specification saying that WBD doesn't exist currently in that specification document, but is being planned as an addition in an updated version of the specifications. Let me see if Becky or Steve want to add to that.
Yeah, Sylvia, this is Steve H. We do not have WBD in the specifications, but we are collecting WBD, along with the projects that we have underway, and expect WBD updates to be part of the package. It's just that WBD is always on a little bit of a parallel track, so we're trying to work out how to pull both of them together, in concert.
Great. Thank you.
We're not leaving WBD behind.
Right.
Okay.
Next question. Will EDH, when complete within a HUC, will the features automatically replace the features within NHD?
They will, if they go all the way through NHD conflation, geoconflation, they will be the new features within the NHD data set. Yes. And that's the goal, is to create the EDH so that it's easily conflated into NHD and contain the Z values and all the new features that we were just describing.
And this is Becky Anderson. I'm having some internet problems, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay. This is maybe a good time to mention also that, and I think this has been highlighted, but just to reiterate that not all features in the NHD can be updated using an elevation-derived methodology. So any of the data that are derived with the methods and the specifications we just talked about would be updated, but others will need other types of updates.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Are there more details available for the 4 location models you showed? I believe that is that the GMI we're talking about there?
Oh, okay. Yeah, the geomorph. Yep.
Okay.
We, Christiane and I are hoping to publish something soon on the methods of that. We don't have a tool that's ready to be distributed quite yet, but we're always happy to talk to people about the method.
Okay.
Hope that answers the question.
Partially. Let me follow up on that. For the GMI methods that you are developing, you're primarily using these for inspection, but it also seems pretty logical to me that they would also be used as the tools to develop the EDH in the first place. Is that kind of true?
I think they'd certainly give you a good start. I think that the contractors we've been working on, I think they're all using slightly different methods. None of them started out with this type of method, I don't think. I think a lot of them have included these types of layers into their process and tools into their process. But I think that this would definitely give you these derivatives would give you a good idea of where stream channels are, and that you could use as a mask or an area to delineate within.
Great, thank you. Next question. Do you foresee any training or workshops to help state and local partners understand the terminology like the geomorphon?
I'm going to let, actually, I'm thinking that this is a great forum for it, but I'll let others answer that question.
Sylvia, this is Becky. I was thinking the exact same thing. Please let us know, or let Phil and Linda know if there are specific topics like that you'd like us to talk more about, so we can make sure we get that on the list.
Can you elaborate a bit more on the pilot project evaluation criteria you are using?
I'm going to let Christiane go for a while because I feel like I'm answering too many questions.
Okay. Well, I'm not exactly sure
Can
what
you
you'd
go
like
back
me
to
to.
this? Can you go back to the slide?
Okay. I'm not sure with the one that has all of our lists of things we evaluate, maybe.
It was at the beginning of the pilot project description. It just went so quickly, I wasn't able to.
Was it this one talking about the things that we evaluate, or?
Yes.
Okay. What we do when we receive the data from contractors is we run a series of automated tools that we've developed to check for certain criteria are met. We have certain thresholds that we've set for accepting data. We check that the feature density that we've specified has been met. We look at horizontal placement, and we have a lot of different tools, mostly the GMI tool and some other tools to check that. We look at vertical placement. We check monotonicity. We check all of the Z values, where they intersect, where lines intersect lakes, where the lake boundary is positioned relative to the hydro flattened surface. We do a lot of different geometry checks. We check the vertex spacing along features. We look at relationships between features and make sure that things aren't overlapping. That shouldn't be just kind of your typical topology checks. We check the, I think I already mentioned this one, the coordinates of intersecting features. We check that all features have appropriate Z values. We check the geometric network. And I think there are probably other ones that we're checking as well that aren't on this list. We have a pretty extensive list. So if at this point we kind of do an interactive, we share this information with the contractor, and they make corrections and adjustments based on this first automated check. And when we're all satisfied with it, we move into a manual inspection phase where we have a team of inspectors who look over a sample of the features and make sure that not only they meet these requirements, but also that our capture conditions are being met, that lakes are being delineated the way we've specified they should be delineated, and that everything's following our capture condition rules. So I hope that's enough information, or that answers your question.
It does. Can I dive a little bit deeper into you expanding on the feature density? I know lakes and are geographic areas of a certain size. What are you using for your increased density of streams? Is it by catchment? Is it by volume flow? What's the criteria for these new additional streams?
We started out with a method where we were just kind of looking for like 2 times the original density or something like that. But Steve Achel worked with Larry Stanislawski to develop a better method for us. Steve, do you want to describe your new method for density?
Sure. I'm not, it's a more complex method. Whether it's better or not, I guess we'll see when we get the deliveries through here. But the idea there was to work with low flow characteristics that had been calculated by, in this case, the Alaska Water Science Center, to try to estimate, rather than trying to predict stream flow, use a predicted stream flow to estimate the amount of area necessary to generate that stream flow, and then sort of invert that to come up with a feature density by Huck 12. And it, in a lot of cases, it came out to be very much like our initial guidance of 2 to 3 times the existing 63,360 density in Alaska. But there was some variability. And again, the idea here is just to avoid having the density breaks that we've had in a number of instances over the years in the 100K and a few cases in the high res now too. But that's how we're doing it at the moment. In CONUS, it's a little bit different because we do have actual sort of feature, well, we're looking for actual features. With the IFSAR in Alaska, it's a little fuzzier and we're more constrained by, or more inclined to go towards catchment areas. In CONUS, it's a lot easier to say there actually has to be some kind of channel evident. Does that make sense to you, Phil?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Very interesting. So am I getting it right that it's calculated per Huck 12? potentially could be different in an adjoining HUC 12?
Yes.
Ah,
Usually it doesn't change dramatically because the
Right,
things that
right.
drive it are things like, you know,
Right.
watershed characteristics and precipitation and
okay.
temperature, you know, that kind of thing.
But that'll definitely address the old NHD issues where the density was sometimes just based on what one quad map was compiled to versus another.
Correct. That's what we're trying to avoid.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, if you're familiar with the density filter in the NHD currently, it's very similar. It's a very similar kind of process.
Okay, next.
Visibility filter is.
Visibility
is the term.
filter. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Yep.
Okay. All right, great, thank you. Next question from the chat. Do inspection routines exist for WBD?
I can take that one. WBD has their own series of inspections that they run on their layers.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
this is
can you-
Drew. I could just add to that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the Utah Water Science Center, has their team that does this, and they're also working on a number of review tools that they developed or are in development for ArcMap. So this is a kind of a process that's still underway.
Great, thank you. Can you elaborate on differences between an inspection/QC between the Alaska and Texas experiences, given that different data tolerances?
I think that's a good one for Sylvia. Sylvia had to make adjustments to some of our tools.
Yeah, but it's surprising. Everything other than the GMI, which we did have to kind of tweak in order to pick up these non-dendritic channels. Most of the tools were surprisingly able to be used in both situations with slight differences in tolerance or thresholds for how far, for instance, Z values could be below the surface. In Alaska, it's 2 meters, and in CONUS, it's 1 meter. Everything other than probably that GMI, and once we developed that, the layer that had the index values in it, the process again was the same as for Alaska as far as identifying where streams fall outside of it or areas where streams aren't being picked up from it. So, I mean, it's hard to, there's so many different tools, it's hard to mention one or the other, but it didn't change all that much other than the index layers, how that index layer was constructed.
Great. And let's see, one last question. So have you guys come up with any, this may be downstream, pardon the pun, but have you defined any methods to review and assign the feature codes to these new drainage way features that may be generated?
We're actually adjusting the drainage way codes. We're realizing that there are some different situations where the drainage way code should really, we want those used for headwater features, and in the future that will be solely used for headwater features. And we have, we're considering different types of features to describe other surface and subsurface indefinite connections.
Great, thank you. I believe that is it. How are we doing on time, Linda?
That's perfect.
Okay.
And if Christine, if you will unshare, and Emily, can you share me back? Enable me to share?
Yeah, you should be good to go.
Oh, okay. Okay, just a few more questions for the two of you. We appreciate. In doing this work, what was the primary motivation for creating the specification? Was there an event or an issue that made clear that some sort of specification was needed? And I'll let you guys decide who's going to answer.
Actually, I could take a crack at that, Linda, if you wouldn't mind.
Not at all. I would welcome it.
The number of years ago, many of you probably participated in the hydrography requirements and benefits study, where we tried to quantify the benefits and some of the different issues in hydrography data. And one of the things that came out of that was a series of sort of very early pilots on this pulling hydrography from elevation. And one of the outcomes of those pilots was that we weren't all speaking the same language. Hydrography for many years has been kind of a artisanal enterprise that is handed down by apprenticeship or something like that. And moving to more of a production kind of update cycle was going to require writing down some of the things that had been passed on by word of mouth and convention over the years. And so that's really sort of the starting point for figuring out what these specifications should look like. The other thing is we just, we had not, until Sylvia and Christiane took this on, the active NHD specifications, the sort of the base were 20 years old. So it's, it was both time and needed to lay down sort of what the new direction, what the new base should be.
Thank you. Anybody else from the USGS team want to add to that?
I think that was great.
Okay. So in doing this work, developing the specification, what most surprised or challenged you in this work? What were you not expecting?
I'll take a quick stab at that. I think that one of the things is just making sure that people think of hydrography and elevation as coexisting and not separate products. Just getting that divide. Also not thinking of them as cartographic products so much as things that can work together for modeling and all sorts of analysis that's pretty key to water resource investigations. That's a pretty broad general answer, but
well, that's interesting because that goes back to your first slide, right? When they were developed in tandem originally, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Christiane, would you like to add anything?
No, I think that was perfect.
Is it a little late in the date for the East Coast team? All right, so as you go through this work, and one of the aims of the NSGIC USGS Cooperative Agreement project is that we want to think about what resources maybe we can collectively develop to support state, regional, private sector, all of these stakeholders in not only developing the EDH and integrating it into the NHD data and managing the data. So are there other resources you think should be developed by you and or others? And these could be everything from guidance documents to tools to coordination groups, stakeholder communities. What do you think are resources we could look towards developing as a community?
Well, this is Christiane, and right now I think our primary resource is our website, and we're really hoping to continue filling that out with more FAQs, white papers, guidance. on methods and capture conditions. And we would really encourage people to check it out and contact us. Our contact information is on our webpage. So please feel free to contact us if there is more information you would like to have. But I also agree with what we were talking about earlier, that this forum will be a great resource. And maybe Becky, Steve, Al, or Drew might want to comment on this too.
Yeah, this is Becky. I'll comment from the more of the programmatic side of it. I'm really interested in, especially through this forum, but developing and thinking and talking about how do we get this kind of work funded? How do we coordinate across state lines? You know, water doesn't care what state it's in. And so it's a little bit different than like a 3-step type program where you can kind of draw boxes, right? So we have maybe a different type of coordination that we need to do to make sure we get the job done in a way that harmonious across the nation, because we do want this to be a complete national data set that can be used and is very relevant at local levels, but also can be used for new national applications like the National Water Model, that sort of thing. So I would love over the course of the next couple of months in this project to hear from everybody out there on, you know, what do you guys need so that we can do not only the technical part of this, but also so we can do the programmatic piece and make sure that we're finding resources for this. And I'll hand it over to Al, Drew, or Steve to see if they have any other comments.
This is Al Ray. I just from the sort of the science side of this, I'd kind of like to see if there are ideas about how we can, you know, coordinate on improving and maybe publicizing methods, you know, so that you know, the best practices kind of evolve out of this effort, and that those are, you know, published and well understood. So if folks have ideas on how we could promote that, I'd be very interested in hearing what you think. You know, could it be like workshops or publications, or just, you know, what people think would be the most effective ways to try to you know, further the science and maybe not necessarily even improve on what you've seen, but just getting what you saw from Christiana Silvia's presentation, you know, getting that out in a way that's useful to people.
And this is Drew. I can mention the thing for WBD too, just to catch up in terms of rules as they're developed and best practices as they're developed, to get that information out there too on WBD as we start to have it developed with the NHD and the line work. And so they kind of evolve together. There are other areas we're looking at too, such as research in how to best develop certain aspects of WBD, such as catchments, you know, kind of the catchments up or larger areas down, you might say. So looking at different methods and tools and processes to help with that.
I guess I might as well jump in here too. I think one of the, Christiane mentioned the resource area on the web page. One of the things I think we really need is just more examples. That is more, you know, I think when the specifications came together, you know, a couple of years ago, and then were reviewed extensively, you know, sort of for a, you know, brief moment there, we thought we had a pretty good handle on, you know, what we're going to encounter. And then that plan met reality in Alaska first, and there were some peculiar things that weren't anticipated, and we had to make some adjustments there. Then we've been working in Southeast Texas recently, and we're just reviewing a situation where I think there were 3 different canals and a road that all intersected the same place. You know, they overpassed each other, and it's like, well, you know, they hadn't really anticipated dealing with that. So they were, you know, seeing these examples and getting a better understanding of, you know, the different peculiar situations out there will really help, you know, address a broader and broader set of situations. The other thing, you know, the research aspect of this has really been impressive. For many years, we had pilot projects back through the NHD stewardship program that funded some of the BotHat research, funded some of the GeoNet research. And there were a lot of different efforts moving with different methods to unfortunately develop kind of different results. And I think having the specifications in place has helped focus some of the methods research towards developing a particular product, really. And that's very helpful. But as Christiane mentioned, we've talked to different contractors, different people working on methods. There are a lot of different approaches in play, and they all seem to have, you know, potential and seem to work in different environments. So that's actually kind of it's a plus side, I think, going towards Al's point of publicizing these and maybe eventually getting something of a decision tree on, you know, what methods to use in what environments would be a, you know, really excellent outcome.
I want to make sure I capture that.
Well, it was sort of a free flowing, you know, burst of thought there or something. So if you need editing later, let me know.
Oh, trust me.
Okay.
You're going to see a document. So.
Fair enough. All right.
All right. Thank you all. Well, thank you all. And I want to thank our presenters again. Appreciate them joining us and sharing this information. You have their contact information, and I know they'll both be willing to answer any specific questions you have. I just want to remind you, if you have questions or comments about the project, you can reach out to Phil or me. Also remind you that this is a monthly webinar series, and it'll be the 3rd Wednesday of the month, 3 to 4 p.m. Registration will be announced. The registration will be new each month, so you do have to register each month, and we try to get that out the first week of the month, and you can check the NSGIC calendar and the upcoming events to find that registration. I think the best way to do it is to join the 3D NHD, EDH for 3D NHD interest group at mynsgic.org. Then you'll be sure that you won't miss any information. And wanted to let you know that next Wednesday, next month, not next Wednesday, too many webinars this month. Next month, we'll be talking with the state of New Jersey about their elevation-derived hydrography. So with that, I thank our speakers again. I thank the USGS team for all chiming in and helping out. And give us about a week or so, and all these materials should be up on the website if you want to review any of this information. So hope to see you all next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.